Hey guys, Solid here and welcome back to another episode of Adventure News, except it's a monthly wrap-up. Yes, they're back by popular demand, so we're going to go through multiple bikes. We're talking about the Transalp that's coming. We're also talking about the Norden 901. We've got a couple of Hondas that we need to discuss and a few Triumphs, so there's plenty to discuss. So let's roll our intro and get into all this Adventure News goodness. So let's start with the mighty little Honda CB500X. It's a fantastic little adventure bike with a really great price tag. It's hard to walk past these magical little adventure bikes. And it's getting a few little upgrades that are really needed, I think. One is preload adjustable front suspension, then moving to shower suspension, which is great to see that upgrade and will really help in the versatility of managing different weight loads on the motorcycle, which is something that happens with the adventure bike. Doing multi-day trips loaded up with gear, maybe you're taking a pillion. These are the kinds of things you need to be able to adjust for on your suspension. So good job there, Honda. The other thing is increased braking. Now this is something that's usually just good enough on entry-level adventure bikes. You don't usually notice it in my experience, particularly on bikes like CB500X or even the V-Strom. The brakes are perfectly good. That is until you put all your gear on them, or maybe you take a pillion, and then the brakes kind of show their lack of bite a little bit. It's not dangerous, but it certainly isn't as good as it could be. And you do have to cut some slack for these bikes. They really are at the bargain end of the spectrum, so manufacturers have to cut costs here. Anyway, the good news is Honda are going to dual front discs and calipers on the front, which means that should be a significant upgrade in brake performance. Another double thumbs up for that. Of course, we're not getting the spoke wheels that we're always wishing for. I've got my fingers permanently crossed that we will see a spoke wheel variant of the CB500X, but it looks like Honda are just happy to coast on what they've already done with incremental upgrades and leave it to the aftermarket like Rally Raid to offer the spoke wheels and all those shiny updates. I think this is a pretty underrated little adventure bike, and it's good to see Honda continuing to develop it. So the next one is the 2022 CRF 1100L Africa Twin, the big boy adventure bike from Honda. This one definitely falls in the bold new graphics column. There's not really that much being upgraded. The DCT transmission is being tweaked for off-road ability. That probably means shortening the gear ratios for low speed work. Other than that, color schemes, a few little touches like accessories are now becoming standard. The top rack is now standard on all models. Top racks should be standard from the get-go. Everyone is going to need one for an adventure bike, so why they don't just make them standard eternally frustrates me. I don't know if you're like that. Maybe it's just me being a bit weird, but I think top rack should probably be standard on every damn adventure and dual sport motorcycle. Case closed. So a few websites have been talking about the new Transalp that's imminent. Basically, there's no new news. They've just thrown up more design cues saying this is what it could look like. There isn't really any more information. I have seen a few articles start to say that this could be anywhere from 750 to 850 cc. So that narrative has changed a little bit. A little while ago, everyone was speculating this would be 800 cc's plus. Now I'm starting to see 750 cc. So that is interesting. I actually think it would probably be smart for this bike to be 750 to 800 cc's rather than going higher, as I would like to see middleweights actually represent a middleweight category, and 800 cc's plus to me really is getting into big bike territories. I think that would be a great move, keeping it smaller, lighter. That's always my mantra. You probably get bored of me saying it, but it really does make it more usable for my kind of riding needs. I do hope they keep this on the affordable spectrum. They did manage to do it with the Africa Twin within reason, and of course we've got the CB500X, and there's a massive gap in between, so I think they really do need a bike to nail the middles. I'm looking forward to what happens with this, whether it will go Tenere 700, that is fairly hardcore off-road, or whether it will go more V-Strom 650, and that is, it's more of a road touring adventure bike. Remains to be seen, but either way, this should be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to having a little more variety on the market. Next up, we have Triumph's flagship big behemoth, the Tiger 1200. There's three big things to talk about with this bike. One, Triumph are claiming that this is significantly lighter than the outgoing model. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Two, is they're using the T-plane engine technologies. We first saw this on the Tiger 900, and I can tell you that these T-plane engines are very different to the standard triples. I've ridden the Tiger 800 and the Tiger 900 with the T-plane, and the torque characteristics are very different. Down low, it's a lot burblier, it's got a lot more low-end grunt. I thought it gave the engine some much needed character. They do that by basically doing what you see in a cross-plane 270-degree crank engine like the R1, or you see in the 270-degree twins like the Africa Twin. We see it in the Yamaha Tenere. That's how they get that burble and that great low down torque characteristics. Triumph have done it with a triple motor and they've called it their T-plane technology. So it's great to see in this big 1200. It should bring the power more usable and lower in the rev range, therefore making it more user-friendly off-road. So I'm excited for that, as well as I think it gives the motor a much needed dose of character. I will admit I've never been a big fan of triple engines, but I did think that this T-plane technology has made a greater case for these being fairly decent off-roads. I'd like to know your thoughts. If you've got a 900, what do you think of the new T-plane tech? And are you excited to see it on the 1200? The other big thing that they haven't really stated but can clearly be seen in the pictures is that they've got a shaft drive on the Triumph. So that means it's basically neck and neck with the GS now. You've got two options. The Super 10 went the way of the Dodo, so basically the GS has been the mainstay of the shaft drive crowd. So now Tiger have clearly thought, we should get into the shaft drive thing. I do like the idea of it on my big street tours. It is just one less thing to worry about on a multi-day trip. On these big adventure tours where you're not really doing much hard, deep mud kind of riding, I can see how these shaft drives make a lot of sense. So sticking with Triumph, we've got the 900 in the headlines as well. Apparently there is going to be an ultra exclusive 007 James Bond edition of the Tiger 900, to which I say whoop-de-doo. That was me caring, by the way. I really don't like these style of bikes. I mean, I'm sure it gains some attention from some people and maybe collectors who like these ultra exclusive bikes, but to me, I see no reason to pay more money for the same bike, basically. It's just not my speed. If that is your thing, more power to you. I do have a few friends who love those style of bikes, and I've probably annoyed them with this video, but it's just not my thing. I really don't understand it other than from, of course, Triumph's perspective. It's a great marketing ploy. It gets their Tiger 900 being talked about, case in point, so job well done there, Triumph. But as a purchaser's perspective, I do not like these silly special edition adventure bikes. Now, I will caveat that with saying proper special editions where you're actually getting upgraded suspension or brakes or real tangible updates, I'm on board for that. But these paint schemes with changing little bits here and there really doesn't get me going. Next, we have the Husqvarna Norden 901. I really like the design of this. It captured a lot of people's attention when it first dropped. Now, I want to say there's no real new news. There's just more videos being released building the hype for this bike. Why did I like it so much? It bucked the trend of adventure bike design. If you ask me, a lot of new adventure bikes, they kind of look like Megatron's illegitimate son, all angles, transformerish, and very robotic. Whereas the Husqvarna 901 kind of harkens back to the good old days when headlights used to be round and that's all you got. So I like that they've gone that little retro styling there. It's obviously captured a lot of attention. But more importantly, this gets me excited about the possibility of a 501. If they do what they've done with the 901, that is premium suspension, all the nice things, focus on keeping the weight down, and do it in a 501 parallel twin package, my head would explode with excitement because I really think that is a big gap in the market, and I have a lot of people telling me that that's the kind of bike they want to see. So I think it would be fantastic if that was to happen. Looking forward to the 901, but even more excited for the possibility of a 501. As soon as I hear some information on that bike, I will let you know. So the next one is the Aprilia Tuareg 660. This is a massively popular bike. It really caught me by surprise how much interest there is for this middleweight adventure bike. And this bike really is growing on me. When I first revealed the pictures, I was a bit on the fence about the looks. I was kind of like, it's a bit ugly, but then again, it is an adventure bike, and what adventure bike isn't a little bit ugly? But the more I look at this bike, the more the looks are growing on me. And of course, Aprilia have released a video and some footage of them doing adventure bike things, presumably with a motorcycle rider far above the skill level of most mere mortals. So of course, all the pictures and the media are of this motorcycle doing amazing off-road things that I myself would not be capable of. Now, this is a little bugbear that I have. Of course, you really need to advertise your bike and show its capabilities. This really is more of a rider problem rather than a motorcycle problem. I firmly believe that it's 80% rider, 20% motorcycle. But in saying that, it really is annoying when this does trick a lot of the beginner riders. They see a big heavy adventure bike like this and think, wow, if I get this bike, it can do those things. And then there's this rude awakening as they realize they've got this massive behemoth of a bike that is far too unwieldy for their basic skills. You're far better off starting with a light bike. But it is nice to see the ceiling of this motorcycle. Clearly, it can be ridden pretty hard off-road. So that is encouraging for riders with experience. Here in Australia, the Aprilia dealerships do leave a little bit to be desired. Are you willing to go through the price, the Italian stigma, and perhaps that lack of dealer support to own a very interesting motorcycle? Regardless of those challenges, I still think this is going to be quite a popular adventure bike moving forward. The Ducati Desert X was a video I did recently. I'm quite excited about this bike from a design and a theoretical perspective. I really like what they've done with the look of this bike. It will be interesting to see if they keep the twin tanks that they had on the original concept. That's something that a few of you have commented on and asking about. We're not really sure if this will happen or not. We'll find out later on in the year, of course. The bigger news that I touched on in the other video was they're changing to the Multistrada 950 engine, and they're ditching the entire Desert Sled platform, the frame, the engine, everything. They've started from scratch and they're using the 950 engine. This indicates to me that Ducati may be intending to use this as their off-road capable middleweight adventure bike to slot in next to the Multistrada, which is more of an adventure tourer. So very interesting times. Whether it will keep all of the DNA and the great looks, we'll have to wait. The concerns that a lot of you did list are really legitimate in my eyes. Number one is cost. Ducatis are far too expensive for my wallet. These are really dream bikes for me. I still get excited about them, but I certainly cannot pay the entry price on a brand new one. But I'm a patient man and I'm happy to wait for a secondhand one to pop up in a few years' time. So don't give up hope entirely if it's out of your initial budget range. The other thing is that Italian reliability stigma. Now, I can't comment on the Ducatis. I've never owned one, so I don't really know about the reliability of a modern Ducati, but it is fair to say that that stereotype is still circulating out there and may be a hurdle that they will need to get over. But I certainly think there's a place in the market for these kinds of bikes. Those kind of aspirational halo motorcycles at top of the range that pushes the design edge, has some fresh thinking, and really is a great thing to look at. So I'm excited for this bike. Yes, it might be expensive. Yes, it might be too pretty to drop and ruin off-road, and maybe you might not trust it as much as your Yamaha way out in the middle of nowhere, but goddamn does it look good. So that's it for this monthly wrap up of adventure news. If you've got some bikes you'd love me to talk about in the next monthly wrap up, chuck them in the comment section below and I will try and get to them. Of course, if you've got any ideas, thoughts, or critical analysis on what I talked about, chuck it in the comment section below. I really do like seeing your thoughts and ideas. It's one of the fantastic things about this channel and the community that's built around it. All the different perspectives that come together in a love of off-road motorcycles. So I wanted to thank you all for your support. Don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll catch you in the next video, guys. See you later.